Mover Nation. It is the show that is live from Santa Monica, California. And it is the show that is so grateful for your patience while I work out what seems to be a weekly issue of technical difficulties on a Thursday. We have a lot to talk about today because keep getting dragged back into this whole like Murdaugh book thing, which I just find is really, really interesting. I also find people's unwillingness to take any accountability also really, really interesting. And that's what I want to talk about. I'm Collier Landry. This is Moving Past Trauma Live. Let's get into it.
Testimony continued today in the most notorious criminal trial in
When I was 12 years old, my testimony sent my father to prison for murdering my mother. This podcast serves as a type of therapy and reconciliation for myself, and it is my hope that it helps anyone who has experienced deception, betrayal, and dark trauma.
I'm Collier Landry, and this is Moving Past Trauma.
Mover Nation, what's going on? Happy Thursday, May. What did I take a time capsule? September 7th, which I believe is, Larry Bird's birthday today? Or maybe is this Pearl Harbor Day? I don't know. That's November 7th, right? Sorry. I fast forwarded and gone back in time. I don't know. Maybe I need a nap. So in response to yesterday's episode where I sort of weighed in on this whole Murdaugh request for the retrial and this whole thing with this book that has come out as of August 1st, this book, Behind the Doors of Justice. I just happened to wake up this morning and was going on YouTube to look at what's going on with the day, and our good friends over at Surviving the Survivor, Joel Waldman, was interviewing this guy, Neil Gordon, who is Rebecca Hill's co-author of this book. And I posed a question, which we will get into very soon. But a lot of you and there's a lot to talk about today because there's this whole Murdaugh issue, the book, et cetera, which I want to talk about a lot. Books and crooks don't mix. But also, Danny Masterson was sentenced to 30 years today for his actions from his trial his retrial that happened this year. There was a mistrial last year. He will be facing 30 years behind bars. That's a long time. Wow. And I was reading some of the reactions online to people. I posted about it on Twitter. I sent it to some friends because it feels like maybe some people are sort of catching up to like, you shouldn't do bad things or you're going to go to prison for a really long time. There have been recent sentences handed down in recent cases that I thought, okay, hopefully this will deter people from their actions. Black Widower, thank you so much for becoming a member for 5 months. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Throw that back up on the board. So yes, very happy to hear of that decision coming down because I think a lot of people were concerned about that because I think a lot of times, as we see, there's a lot of people get away with stuff. A lot. And it's very interesting. So on that note, and on this whole book thing, et cetera, which I'm going to get into, I got some videos I'm going to play that I prepared for the episode. A lot of you said, hey, look at Vinnie Politan's interview with the guy, Neil Gordon, from a couple of days ago. So I pulled some snippets from there because I think it's very interesting what he says. But I also, as someone who is an artist, as someone who has done something creative with this story, who has put something out there in the media, I don't think my main question to all of this is like, where is our sense of decorum? Where is our sense, like, restraint, self-control, decorum? These are words that come to mind when you see something that this book. So Alex Murdaugh was sentenced, I believe, on March the 4th. The book comes out on August 5th. That's less than 5 months. I've watched a couple of these interviews with this guy, and he's like, oh, well, I knew her 6 months. Oh, I knew her this. Oh, but I didn't start working on until after the trial, 3 weeks after the trial, et cetera, et cetera. Again, and so I'm just going to play some of these clips. I think it is, but I think that the thing that we have to keep in mind is what, why? Like, why? And why is no one taking accountability for this either? That's what I find is the most interesting thing. Like, why are we not taking accountability for our actions? Because that, of course, is, as I say, the devil is in the details, right? So I'm going to play a little bit of this excerpt from Vinnie Politan, who obviously has a show on Court TV. And now let's take a listen. We're going to listen a little bit about this, and I'm going to make some comments here. All right.
Behind the Doors of Justice, the Murdoch Murders, available on Amazon. People are buying it. People are reading it, including the defense. This is part of the basis of them bringing this motion. It was based upon this book being released and what's in it. She wrote it with a man named Neil Gordon. Again, it's a big if. If these allegations are true, I think he's going to get a new trial.
Okay, so that would be my first thing. Why are we here? Why are we even talking about this? Why are we even, as someone, look, I am here in this program. I am here for you guys as my audience, as someone who has been through, as you see in the intro that I always play every single episode, that has been through all this, so you guys don't have to be. So this is where my unique perspective comes in. As someone who looks at it through the lens of having to go through this nightmare, why are we having to go through this nightmare again? Or even entertain the thought that people are discussing that there's going to be, that this could warrant a new trial. And again, the timing of this book all seems to be very suspect. But why are we here? Why? Well, we're going to get into it because this guy, Neil Gordon, is going to talk a little bit with Vinnie Politan. I will play this. All right, where's...
You got to get set up. No.
Okay.
We advanced.
New trial.
Okay. Hold on. I apologize. Technical difficulties.
No.
Okay.
We advanced a check for $30,000. You got attorney fees. You got to get set up on Amazon. You got to print so many copies, liability insurance, editors, you name it.
Now, this is, of course, so this is the thing that I think is, that I find the most interesting because, I've said book deal, obviously that grabs people's attention. There was no traditional book deal in this sense because for those of you that don't know how this works, I've had a lot of experience with book deals. I've been approached about a lot of this. This is a self-publishing option that they've done. He's saying he wrote a check for $30,000. That is about what it costs to publish a book on Kindle desktop publishing. Again, I think I mentioned this yesterday. You can find lots of YouTube videos about it. A lot of people do it. Costs about 30 to 40 grand to write a book because you have to pay for an editor. You have to pay for attorney. In this case, they have to pay for attorneys. They have to pay for this and that and the other. You have to hire a ghostwriter like this gentleman, who is he's not really a ghostwriter. He's a co-author, right? So maybe he had been given some money. I don't know, because normally those fees, a lot of those fees get eaten up by someone to write your story for you, right? Or to help you write that story. For people who are not authors or who are first-time authors, they normally have ghostwriters. This also works in large-scale publishing. This also works in large-scale publishing. Sorry, I'm like that small on the screen. This also works on large-scale publishing because if you are a first-time author, the publishing house, if it's, Random House, Penguin Books, etc. Well, Penguin is Random House, I guess. But if you're a big five publisher, they often will they'll say you need a ghostwriter, and then they'll have you work with someone to craft your story because it is very difficult to write a book and to hold people's interests. It's a massive amount of work. My thing is, what they're saying is, oh, we spent this money, so therefore this somehow is like virtue signaling, like, look, we're good people because we paid this money. No, You paid this money because you wanted to write a book, because you wanted to make money, which he also says in these interviews that they have made sales and they did. This is not some altruistic version of like, oh, we're really good people. We wanted to tell the story. No, you did this to make money. Listen to me.
But we felt it was a story that should be told. I mean, in my lifetime, I'm 59 years old. I don't know that there will ever be another trial like this. And it was my honor and pleasure to work with somebody with such integrity and character as someone like Becky Hill. Did you interact with her? I know that you were there.
I was there. I did not. Some of our staff had the opportunity.
He talks about this for a little bit. And by the way, this is ripped directly from Court TV, Vinnie Politan's show, which I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but Closing Arguments, I believe, or something like that. Anyways, shout out to Vinnie Politan.
Have you spoken to Becky today after all of this has become public?
Very briefly, as you might imagine, she's had calls off the hook from media outlets. And as much as she'd like to make a statement, these allegations are so deep that she has hired counsel and they're going over them. But I am told they are going to put out a statement in the near future. And one thing I know about Becky Hill, she will answer each and every one of these allegations truthfully. She's one of the most genuine people I know. And it made me sick seeing this played out on national TV. And I just felt like I needed to speak out.
Okay. So here's another issue I have. Shout out Karen Isabel Stewart for the super sticker. Thank you so much. Here's another issue. He says, quote, "This made me sick seeing how this played out on national television." What did you expect was going to happen? What did you expect by writing a book, co-authoring a book with the clerk of courts from the Murdaugh trial, giving her inside information that she had less than 5 months after the judge signs the verdict, after the jury hands over its verdict, and after the judge signs his sentencing order? Less than 5 months of this book coming out, knowing and being a part of this community, by the way, because this gentleman is from this community. His wife was a photographer. The whole story goes that his wife was photographing on the Moselle trip and wanted to put together like a coffee table book of the photographs of the trial, which I'm all for that. As an artist, I think that's cool. I'm a photographer, as you guys know, cinematographer, so I'm all about that, right? Because she was a spectator. This is a whole different thing because, and why he somehow thinks, well, guess what, man? Welcome to the party. Neil Gordon, welcome to the party. You're in a public space now. You put something out. Do you think that you get to put something out and just fly under the radar? No, man, that's not how this works. You get to get nasty comments by people, nasty DMs. I get them. My co-host of Survivor Squad gets them. Tara Newell. We have a new episode came out today, by the way. Just a quick shout out. Tana Amon is our guest. Check it out wherever you get your podcast from. You know, this is something that people, it's like, hello, what were you expecting? Why are you taken aback by this? Why are you surprised? And why are you, quote, disgusted? You want to, I got disgusting things. I can read some disgusting things that people write me. That's for sure. Now, I saw all this play out this morning. So I watched this video because a lot of you recommend, hey, check out Vinnie Politan's interview with him. Then I literally am on YouTube this morning and this thing pops up and obviously Surviving the Survivor is interviewing him. And I decided to ask a question, which I didn't think they were going to put on the screen, but here we are.
I don't know how the book would have really anything to do with that, to be honest with you. I mean, the book is one person's perspective. So
now I had posed the question to just in the comments of saying, how can will Miss Becky, Rebecca Hill, and this Neil Gordon, who have put this book out, are they prepared to live with the consequences that if, because the defense is clearly saying that we were waiting for this book to come out so we can highlight this. And obviously it has led to disgruntled viewers. My question to them is, because this is what the defense is saying now, this could be legal brinksmanship and gamesmanship, which is what exists. But if this is what causes a retrial of Alex Murdaugh, who was convicted, everything is said and done. And again, I look at this from the unique lens of a survivor, of someone who has been through a murder trial of his own mother by his father. Okay? To have all of that play out again in court, in front of the community, in front of the nation, in front of the world. Are they prepared? Because he's already saying, as we heard a little bit ago, he was very discouraged and very upset about the disgusting comments that were being said online. You think that if they use this as the linchpin to get a new trial for Alex Murdaugh, you don't think you're going to get some serious hate mail? You don't think that people are going to put that on you? They are. I'm sorry. And I'm not putting that on them, by the way. Like, look, and and I feel really bad for this guy, because this is a serious error and lapse in judgment, in my opinion, of all parties involved. It's a serious lapse in judgment. But what the time is, there's maybe a little bit of, what is the word I'm looking for? Discretion would be one of them. Decorum, another D word. But maybe a little bit of a sense of humility. And what I don't like about his particular comment on the show this morning was the fact that he just kind of doubles down on it.
Of what happened. Now, the allegations of what occurred during the trial, as opposed to what was written about after the trial, that's for the law and the government and the investigators to kind of work out. But, we live in a society of freedom of the press.
Absolutely true. You do live in a society of freedom of the press. You also do happen to live in a reality of where people who are involved in the court system, like, I wouldn't have a problem. And a lot of people pointed out in the comments yesterday, they said, the guy who was the prosecutor for the Manson murders a bajillion years ago, had written a book. There are many people that wrote a book. Marsha Clark obviously wrote a book after, Anthony Darden wrote a book, after the O.J. Simpson trial, right? All these people wrote books. All these people had television careers. You know what I mean? And people continue to have television careers based upon cases. And I don't have a problem with any of that. My question is the timing of all of it. They didn't just rush to get something out to capitalize on the ride to this, and then they've played into, because we're talking essentially about, like, we're not talking about stupid people here that are that represent Alex Murdaugh. This is like Dick Harpootlian and this Jim Griffin, and this is like, I didn't expect to keep talking about this, but I am. These are not dumb people. Dick Harpootlian has been involved in politics apparently for almost 5 decades in South Carolina. So we're talking about, like, this is like a good old boys club too, right? So the fact that they would pounce on something like this, like, why is this a surprise to anyone? Of course they can use this. And does it feel like they're grabbing at straws? Probably. That was my initial reaction to it. But why give them the ammunition? Why not just exercise a little bit of restraint? And the reason why is they wanted to be the first to market with a book. That's the bottom line. So to sit here and say and make this argument, and this is what upsets me, is that they're making this argument, well, everybody else is doing it. That doesn't mean you should do it.
And let's be honest, this has been the big story all over the world.
Yes, it's been the big story.
Since March. And many people have written about many things, and there have been many podcasts, including by people involved. Jim Griffin has a podcast.
100%.
Attorneys, Eric Bland has a pod. So many people have been involved. So I don't buy that. I'm sorry.
So he doesn't buy any culpability, which is the whole point, because I'm just trying to put his feet to the fire. Like, hey, man, like, aren't you going to feel a little bit guilty about any of this if this all comes to a head? Like, let's just play this out. Let's hope that nothing happens. Let's live in this very utopian world of where they're not going to be able to do anything, and it's just going to kind of go away, and nobody's going to be thinking about this next week. Now we'll go to the world of reality, which is, in effect, look, this is serious stuff. And let's forget about the fact that, a lot of people have mentioned that, she could be criminally responsible and stuff like that. The fact is that, he mentions in this interview, in both interviews, that she had to hire a lawyer. Why'd you have to hire a lawyer if you didn't do anything wrong? I mean, obviously, you hire a lawyer because you've gotten yourself into some hot water. I personally don't think there would have been a problem if this was a year from now. I don't think there would have been a problem, but I think it's just so egregious because it shows that they were trying to be the first to market with this book. And I think that is what has upset people. That's what's aggravated me. And to sit here and point the finger of, well, somebody else did it too. They're doing it over here. They're doing it over here. Yes, that is very true. But those are defense attorneys. They are not members of the court. Okay? They are independent counsel, hired independently. This person was in charge of the jury and works for the state of South Carolina. Do we see the difference here? I understand that many people have podcasts, but that to me, that response of, well, they've done it, they're doing it, they're capitalizing off their fame, they're capitalizing off this case. Yes, they are, but they are not members of the judicial system. They are characters that walk in and out. And yes, they are held to a certain code of ethics, but they are independent attorneys that are hired. They are not representatives of the state. You don't see Dr. Kenny Kinsey out writing books. You don't see him starting a podcast. You don't see Creighton Waters doing a podcast, to my knowledge, doing a podcast and writing books. No, because they're concentrating on what they know that what they're doing and the work that they've done. You don't see members of SLED. I mean, I might be wrong. Maybe they're all writing books. Who knows? I don't think they are. Because I think they have a sense of decorum and a way in which they operate that is very ethical. And this boils down into like a much larger conversation, which I've had on many podcasts about ethical true crime and our consumption of it and creators who use this, right? And now she is a creator. Guess what? Rebecca Hill, Neil R. Gordon, congratulations. You are part of the true crime creator community. Chalk it up to the game, man. You're going to get the hate mail. You're going to get people coming after you. You're going to, and you'll probably sell a lot of books. He admits in these interviews that they've sold a lot more books. We've sold a lot more books since this story dropped. Of course you did, man. But don't sit here with some sort of altruistic vision of like, we just wanted to get this story out. She always wanted to be a writer. No, man, you didn't invest you didn't put in $30,000 to write a book because you thought you were going to lose it. I made a documentary about my life, about my own story, directed by a 2-time Oscar winner. I got money from Investigation Discovery to do that. Did Investigation Discovery come to me and say, Collier, we love you so much, we're willing to waste $500,000 to put a movie out. And if it doesn't make any money, we don't really care because it's really important to tell this story. If you guys think that's what they did, I got another bedtime story for you. Absolutely not. They said, we like this project. We want to do it because we feel that we can use it to what? Make some money, to have a great program on our platform that we put out. They love the fact that my director had won 2 Academy Awards. We want to be a part of this. Literally said, we want to be a part of this. We want to be in the Barbara Koppel business. We want to be in the Collier Landry business. We want to do this, right? That, because they know that bottom line, they're going to get, millions of streams. They're going to get a lot of exposure. It's going to elevate a lot of their quality of their content. It's a very well done film, et cetera, et cetera. So nobody goes into this blind and says, okay, well, we're going to put this, if you're going to spend $30,000, then go buy a bunch of lotto tickets. You know what I mean? Like, they knew what they were doing. They knew what they were doing. And that's my contention. So to sit here and point fingers all these different which ways and say, well, you know what? We didn't know better. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. And then you rush to get it out because you wanted to be the first to market. Let's call it what it is. Let's cut out the nonsense. Just be honest. Just say this is what we were trying to do because we'd have a lot more respect for you. That's my issue. And again, to pose that question to him was just to say, have you thought about how you're going to be held accountable? Because I guarantee you, mark my words, September 7th, 3:27 p.m. Pacific time. If Alex Murdaugh gets a retrial, and this is the center of one of their focus, is this woman trying to rush out this book and her involvement as the clerk of courts and the juror, because let's not forget, they have this statement, which I'm going to read right now. I wish I wouldn't bury these things in my desktop. This statement, which is from juror 630, says, I had questions about Mr. Murdaugh's guilt, but voted guilty because I felt pressured by other jurors. She, referring to Becky Hill, asked jurors about their opinions about Mr. Murdaugh's guilt or innocence. She, meaning Becky Hill, instructed them not to believe evidence presented in Mr. Murdaugh's defense, including his own testimony. She lied to the judge to remove a juror she believed might not vote guilty, and she pressured jurors to reach a guilty verdict quickly so she could profit from it. Okay, so if that's their statement, all right, again, following this up, because and I'm not saying that she did or didn't do this, because this is all got to play out in court. There's a lot of baseball to still play here. We're still in the first inning of this whole thing, in my opinion. But if this leads to a retrial and perhaps a conviction overturned and they don't get a conviction again, I mean, you got to think about all of the preparation and everything. And remember, in the Murdaugh trial, not once did the defense ever come up and say, it's the one-armed man, or we have this person that we believe did this. We have this. Again, these are really good attorneys. These are really skilled attorneys. If this book, and they use this as somehow to push forward in this appeal process and get a retrial, hell hath no fury. If you guys think that it's coming down now because you wrote a book and it came out and people are expressing their opinions about it, just wait. Just wait. I get hate mail, direct messages about my father, about my mother, about me causing her death, her murder. I shouldn't have been involved. I ratted on my father because I testified in court, because I called police, because I spoke to the police, because et cetera, et cetera. You name it. People say and do really crazy things. And that's without any ammunition. All I did was tell the truth and do what I felt was was living in integrity. Can you imagine doing something that's out of integrity? That's out of integrity of what your job and your position is in the court. What's out of integrity is what we look upon as society as a whole. We trust our public officials. We trust people in the court system as people who want to see the wheels of justice turn. We want to see fair trials. And if this is all caused because it's over a book that you thought you were going to make this money, hell hath no fury. I feel sorry for her. There's a great saying in LA Confidential, the movie from the late 90s, Guy Pearce, Kevin Spacey, James Cromwell. I think James Cromwell says, he rushes out and he says something like Danny DeVito's in it. I mean, it's a fantastic movie. Russell Crowe, like post Gladiator, Russell Crowe, amazing. So LA Confidential, if you've never seen it, it's an amazing movie. There's a great thing, and Guy Pearce is rushing out because he's coming after Russell Crowe's character, and he says, and James Cromwell says, I wouldn't trade places with Bud Fox for all the whiskey in Ireland. I don't drink anymore. I am Irish, but I don't drink anymore. I would not trade places with Rebecca Hill or Neil Gordon for all the whiskey in Ireland. That is what a lot of people are going to say, because if this happens and there is this retrial, and again, I'm not trying to manifest anything, but what a mess that all could have been avoided. Restraint, decorum, integrity. These are all things to keep in mind as we get into the second part of the show. Let's take a break for our sponsor, NextEvo CBD. Mover Nation, you guys all know how I lead a really busy life, right? And I know we could all use a little more relaxation. Now, whether you're trying to chill out or just need a good night's rest, NextEvo's CBD will be your best friend. But, and this is big, not all CBD products are created equal. Shockingly, a study found that many CBD brands contain as little as 60% of what their labels promise. I've been trying out NextEvo Naturals and Movers. It's the real deal. And their commitment? Well, it's giving you exactly what's on the label. Remember, they've undergone 4 clinical trials, a feat unmatched by any other brand of CBD. Now, I personally adore their Stress CBD Complex gummies. When I'm feeling anxious or overwhelmed, they are a total game changer. And those nights when sleep is all too elusive for me, the triple action CBD sleep does absolute wonders. Leave summer stress behind and upgrade your CBD. Go to nextevo.com/MPT to get 25% off plus a free bottle of premium pure CBD, a $50 value, limit 1 use per customer. That's nextevo.com/MPT. God, what a handsome product. I don't know, brand ambassador. I don't know. Anyways, that is my thoughts on this whole debacle. Yeah, it's a strange one, and we'll see how it plays out. Honestly, I don't know. What do you guys think? I sit here up here talking about it. Let's see what you guys are saying in the comments, because I know there's a lot going on. So I'm just curious. Oh, look here. Thank you so much, Jen DeSemio, for the super sticker. I really appreciate it. What was the plan here with these people with their book? It's all so weird. I agree. Lots of Irish viewers in here, it seems. I Heart Dublin. Yes, we like the Irish. We like the Irish. And for the Irish, so I have this little thing. I think I've shared this before, but this is a little shamrock bear that was my mother's that she used to wear on her purse when I was a child and for St. Patrick's Day. Maybe I should let him just kind of, he can just kind of hang out here on the on my oh, his head fell off. Oh, we won't throw that. But yeah, so it is really it's a really unfortunate thing, because now this is just, again, we're going to be re-traumatizing a whole community, a whole group of people. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I don't know how, if this had happened back in the day in my father's case, how I would have reacted. Are you kidding me? If I had to go through a retrial again, the little bear's head fell off. It would be insane. But again, let's just hope for, again, some sense of decorum, some sort of sense of, hey, look, let's let cooler heads prevail. This is, the prosecution has to respond. But again, you talk about now how this is just going to throw a monkey wrench into the court system, and then now cases are really be postponed. Now all of this is going to be going on and distracting from other things that this community needs to handle, that the court system needs to handle, that perhaps the media needs to cover. I don't know. It's my head is getting cut off by the microphone, or by the camera. Look, it's a lot. It's a lot to think about. It is a lot to it's just a lot of unnecessary bullshit. Okay, speaking of the wheels of justice, I have another little thing. Nope, that's not what I want to do. So, Danny Masterson, as I had discussed at the top, Danny Masterson has been sentenced.
That 70 shows actor Danny Masterson has been sentenced to 30 years to life in prison for the rapes of 2 women. The judge issued the sentence to the 47-year-old after hearing impact statements from the 2 victims describing the trauma they have suffered from their encounters with Masterson 2 decades ago. One telling him in the courtroom, quote, "When you raped me, you stole from me."
Well, this all comes after a jury found.
Now, I love how these women were courageous enough in court to make their victim impact statements, to say, you took away, I mean, having this happen to you, and can you imagine? It has been 20 years since this happened, because I remember I was new into Hollywood and I was hearing his name touted around in circles about this type of behavior. But he was on That 70s Show, and he had obviously a lot of bucks and was a cool kid in town, and yada, 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 right? So there was a lot of things that were going on around that, but I'd heard these rumors. And the fact that these women are getting justice, I mean, he will be 77 years old. I mean, I think it's an 85%. Anyways, it's a long time. It's a long time. Obviously, deserves it, but it's a long time. I'm going to play this little clip a little longer.
On Masterson guilty on those 2 counts of rape in a retrial. Our legal contributor and host of the Law and Crime Network, Brian Buckmeyer, joins us now. Brian, what do you make of the sentence?
I think it makes sense, especially based on the allegations. I think for Masterson and his defense, they came out winning in some respects because the charges were not run consecutively. This could have been 30 and 30 years rather than just 30 years with the life in prison, which basically means that after 30 years, he will have a possibility of going before a parole board and asking to be let out and still be on parole while having some form of liberty. But with allegations like this and no admission of guilt or no remorse, that would make it very difficult. However, I think that him not speaking in his final moments during his sentencing is him putting all his cards into this appeal.
So he has been, he was out on bond for a while. He was arrested, I believe, last year. Or maybe it was 2020. I can't remember. This has been going on for a while. But he has been in custody ever since he was convicted on May the 31st. So, yeah, he is just a bad guy, and he's going to go away for a really long time. And again, they were talking about the defense got lucky because he's serving the 30 years, the 30 years together instead of consecutively. So it'd be 30 years and 30 years, right? So they're serving them. He will be serving them concurrently. I believe in California it's 85%. So if my math is correct, that's around 25 and a half, 26 years. That would put him at 72. Let's just put it this way. The best years of his life are gone by the time he is even up for parole. And he's going to have to show contrition, was the word I was looking for earlier, which is what I was looking for from Mr. Neil Gordon. And what I'm saying with Danny Masterson, 2 totally different people, 2 totally different situations, and one way more egregious than the other. Danny Masterson, what he has been accused of, what he has been convicted for, he is awful, horrific human, and he deserves everything he has gotten. However, there is just to have no contrition, to have no, I'm sorry. It's something that my father, that people were looking for from my father when my father was up for parole. Contrition, like, hey, I'm sorry for the impact that this is. There's ways that my father would dance around him because they don't take ownership for anything. It's a really big deal, man. Taking responsibility and accountability for your actions is a really big deal. I don't know, man. It's a cautionary tale, and just don't be a bad person. And I think too, when you think a lot of this is not only, yes. So Jennifer Lewis says that seems like a really long time. No, I think that seems like a very accurate time that he was given. I think the problem is that many times when people are sentenced to these crimes, they get off very easily. They are not handed down sentences that are appropriate for the crime that they committed. I think this is more than absolutely, because this has been going on for 20 years. And these aren't the only people. These are just the people that came forward enough to go to trial. I guarantee that. It's a shame. And, I feel like this is justified. This should make people think twice. You shouldn't be drugging and then, SAing people. That's wrong. That's evil. Hopefully people will look at this and go, yeah, I don't feel like losing 30 years of my life. And let's also keep in mind that he's been living under the shadow of these allegations for 20 years. So you're talking about for the better part of 50 years, this man is going to live with the consequences of his actions. That's the worst thing. And I think that a lot of times when we look at violent crime, when we look at ways that these perpetrators, they get caught, they go to prison, yada yada, et cetera, we don't think about the fact that the prison term that they themselves have to also live with is the fact that they did do this. They know they did this. Nobody forced him to do that. He forced the women. Nobody forced him. You know what I mean? And the fact that he has sort of remained indignant about all of this is, I think, the worst thing. I think that is the most offensive thing to people in these scenarios, victims, and it's very insensitive to them for people to think that for him not to have any contrition, no apologies, none of this and that, very indignant. I think that is the most infuriating thing. So yeah, throw the book at people like this. Seriously, throw the book at them. It'll deter people from doing this. They'll think twice, that's for sure. And they'll think twice about thinking they'll get away with it. Harsh as some people may think it is. I mean, that's a long time. And I hope it deters a lot of people. But, there's a lot of talk about crime in this country, and I'm not going to get up on a high horse here or get into politics, but a lot of people discuss about criminals not being able to pay, not being held accountable for their actions, or not getting stiffer sentences, or getting out of jail, or this cash bail thing that keeps coming up in the media, et cetera, no cash bail, et cetera, people not facing charges and penalties for their actions. But we've seen in this last week people who have been sentenced for things that they did, and they face harsh penalties for their actions. For once, people aren't getting away with crap. And I think that's a good thing. Like, don't be a bad person. Don't ruin people's lives. Don't hurt people. You're going to pay the price. Think about that. Anyways, I digress. On another note, speaking of our good old friend Alex Murdaugh, there is a new film which is going to come out, which is
It's the Alex Murdaugh murder case as depicted in a new TV movie. Actor Bill Pullman plays the disgraced South Carolina lawyer who was found guilty of murdering his wife and son. Despite what many consider to be a mountain of evidence pointing to his guilt, his two lawyers made the rounds of the morning shows today and insisted Murdaugh is innocent and are asking for a new trial.
You both still believe that Alex Murdaugh did not kill his wife and son?
Absolutely, 100%.
And there you have it. And and instead of them talking about Bill Pullman, and what all he's done, et cetera, didn't he play the president in Independence Day, I think? Isn't that how we know him? And he's been on a bunch of series. He's got another show on Amazon, I believe, that's happening right now. I believe he's quite good in. I believe it's a true crime series, as a matter of fact. But I think he looks perfect as Alex Murdaugh. I think he's a doppelganger to Alex Murdaugh. I'm like, this is great. Like, what perfect casting. I look at the photos. I was in Variety today, and of course I happened to of course I got rid of it. He looks great, and he looks great as Alex Murdaugh. Let me see if I can let me present this again here. I think it's I think it's great. Let's see here. Yeah, there we go. I love it. Okay, hold on. See, now I got all these controls going. Oh, come on, man. Really? I think he is a doppelganger. I think he is a dead ringer for Alex Murdaugh. What do you guys think? I think it's great casting. I don't know about you guys, but I think it's great casting. Just he's like holding him. He's like holding him, like I think it's Paul, right? I mean, Lifetime movies. It's pretty funny. Yeah, so we'll see how that all plays out. I guess the slate of movies that are coming out on Lifetime's ripped from the headline series is beginning. That slate starts on September the 16th. Check it out on Lifetime. There's a lot of movies they have on they have going on. Good old Lifetime movies. Holidays are coming up, and it reminds me, like, there's lots of Lifetime movies and things. My parents, and I'm sure a lot of you feel the same way, are all into the Christmas movies. And I know that the Christmas movies will be coming out, and there's a lot of, my parents always played this game of the wreath counting. My adopted parents will, like, when I go see them for the holidays, I'll watch the movies and they count the shot from when they come in the door and they come across the screen and they land in the kitchen and they say happy holidays. There must be like 25 wreaths in the shot, and the way that these sets are decorated. So it's kind of fun. I chalk the Lifetime movies up to the same similar format. So we'll see what this is. I mean, look, you talk about rushing out a book. Man, they rushed out that movie, didn't they? Wow. But they were probably in production during the trial, I guarantee. But they make pretty quick work of it. They did put out that Gabby Petito movie without, of course, the consent of the family, and it very much upset the Petito family. I totally stand with them on that. Like, it sucks having that portrayed without your permission. And of course, it is, a lot of those movies are unfortunately based upon more conjecture than fact. And families have to, deal with that, and have to, again, seeing their whole life play out on screen, on a small screen, on a television screen, et cetera, et cetera. It's not fun for a lot of people. So, this Murdaugh film, I mean, they have a lot to work with, that's for sure. And maybe this whole book debacle will be also featured in it. Who knows? And the failure to issue consequences that are meaningful has gotten us where we are. Yes, I agree with that, JW. Lena Beautiful says, yes, people get a slap on the wrist, so now when justice is served, it seems so different. I'm glad it finally was served. Yes, me too. I completely concur with all of that. He deserved life without parole, says Diana. I mean, yeah, but let's keep it in mind that his life is over. Like, let's keep it real. You're talking to somebody who grew up in a fairly powerful family in Hollywood, I believe, and also, his life is ruined, but he's, again, I don't even want to think about him. What I want to think about is the lives that he has impacted with his crimes and those victims. And now they have a little bit, does not give them back all those years and all the suffering and the horror that they went through, but at least it is something, because he's not walking free. Because so many people, and I talk about this a lot with other, so I do a podcast with Tara Newell called Survivor Squad. I plug it here all the time. We have a new episode out today. Check it out wherever you get your podcast from. We talk to a lot of people who are victims of violent crime. A lot of these people have dealt with domestic or DV or SA issues. An overwhelming amount of them have. And for some people, they never get the justice that they're looking for. And this completely uproots and upends their lives. I've had a lot of people come to me based upon my personal life experience with my father murdering my mother, that they come to me because they see, for a long time, I would always question, true crime and why people consume it. But somebody pointed out a very stark thing. Like, you got justice. And so when we see you get justice, we feel better. And we feel like we've gotten justice, et cetera, et cetera. So it's really, really cool to see, because we have to remember that a lot of times that people, especially women, let's not get it twisted. Women are often not believed in these scenarios, and the perpetrators get away with it, or they never even face an arrest, let alone their time in court, and let alone a conviction. So to see this, I think this is something for people who have faced this kind of violence towards them. This is a day to celebrate that. As hard as it is, and as difficult as it might be to talk about or to think about, this is a victory for those people who have not gotten justice for crimes that have been perpetrated on them. So to see this and to see somebody, I mean, 30 years, that's actually way more than I thought he was going to get. They said he could have gotten that. I'm surprised that he got that, to be honest. And I think this is going to be a big warning. Like, don't pull this type of bullshit. Excuse my language, but don't be a bad person. Period. Don't destroy people's lives. End of story. I digress on that. Kathleen Welsh, thank you so much for putting up a super sticker. And she says apparently one of the victims forgave him. That is really amazing. That is really amazing. And as someone who I forgave my father, again, forgiveness, and we talk about this in today's episode with Tina Amon, Tina Amon. Forgiveness does not necessarily mean that you're saying it's okay what you did. No, it's saying that I forgive you and that I'm no longer going to give this instance power over me. And that's the best thing with the scenario for the victims to move forward, is to be able to have that. So I commend them for that. I think it's wonderful, like, to be able to have the compassion in their hearts to say, I'm not going to let this have a hold on me. I forgive you, et cetera, and move on with my life, et cetera, et cetera. I don't mean to trivialize it or minimalize it. No, for them to say that, I forgive you and I'm going to choose to move forward, not let this have any power over me. That is a very big step. And I commend these women for doing that, because that's, it takes a lot of people. It takes people a long time to go through that. But it is very, very, very commendable of them to do that. Like, and it's a great first step. It's a great first step towards your healing, because when you are able to free yourself of that bondage, it is an amazing feeling. It really is. It doesn't mean you can't talk about it. It doesn't mean you still feel a certain way about it. It doesn't mean any of that. But what you do say is you say, this doesn't have any power over me. I'm moving on. You know what I mean? So it's a big, big first step. And I find a lot of times when I talk to people that have been through those types of scenarios, it is a very difficult step for them to take. They hold a lot of anger, not only towards the perpetrator, but they hold a lot of anger to themselves. And that, to me, is probably the worst thing, is the going through the coulda, the shoulda, the woulda, or thinking that somehow you are responsible for that perpetrator's behavior towards you, which is utter rubbish. It really is. Like, you're not responsible for the actions of another human being doing something that is horrific like that to you. You're just not. And I hope that more victims see that and understand that, that they themselves can be freed of the bondage of this guilt and the shame, because it's not their fault. It's nothing to do with them. This guy's a monster. Like, end of story. My father was a monster. Danny Masterson's a monster, and they're going where they are. Yvette S., thank you so much for the generous super sticker. I greatly appreciate it. So much. And Gen X Granny says, I actually don't mind the lady who wrote a book. I don't mind that she wrote the book. I'm questioning the timing of it and her role in all of it. And if she had something to do, I think if she had written it 2 years later, I don't think that anybody has a question over it. I think that her timing, the rush to get it out, the desire for fame and glory, I think that all of that, it just stinks to high heaven. And in the immortal words of Mobb Deep, ain't no such thing as halfway crooks. Something is rotten down there. Continues to be. Oh, man. Anyways, I know a lot of you were probably lost in that. You might not have listened to 90s hip hop, but yeah, it is just a it's been a big week in the world of true crime. But again, getting back to my final thoughts on all of this is, I hope obviously for the best in this whole Murdaugh situation, that it is not more corruption that leads to a retrial, that leads to this. I also hope that it was a fair trial too. I hope that that none of these accusations are true. I hope that this really is political posturing. This is legal maneuvering by his defense team, et cetera, et cetera. We will see how all this plays out. And again, congratulations to the two victims and to, congratulations is actually not the right word. And I've said this before. It's not congratulations. Congratulations is when you win the lottery. But I guess what I'm saying is I hope that this verdict and this sentence for Danny Masterson leads a lot of not only the two victims but other victims who may not have come forward to feel a little bit of a sense of justice and move on with their lives. Because that's what this is all important. That's the most important thing about all of this, is moving past the trauma, right? Hey, look at that. That's what this program is called. Look, if you are listening to this on your favorite podcast app, thank you so much. Please, if you would, write us a kind review. Leave us 5 stars if you wouldn't mind. If you're watching this on YouTube, please remember to click like and subscribe. Hit the alert bell so you will be notified of more episodes of Moving Past Trauma, more live episodes, and more videos on my channel here. I want to say thank you so much to my channel members, my new channel members, my new channel subscribers, my supporters on Patreon. Without you guys, this program would not be possible. I thank you from the bottom of my heart. It allows me to do and continue to do and give you this great content, which I hope you're all enjoying. On that note, I am Collier Landry. This is Moving Past Trauma. Thanks, y'all.
This podcast is made possible by support from listeners just like you. For exclusive content around this podcast, please consider supporting me via Patreon by going to collierlandry.com/support. Please subscribe via Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts from, and please leave us a 5-star review. If you want to see video episodes of this podcast, please check out my YouTube channel at youtube.com/collierlandry. You can find links to additional resources in the show notes of today's episode. This podcast is a production of Don't Touch My Radio. Copyright Collier Landry.